Good afternoon one more time, everybody. Happy Sabbath, Saturday afternoon. It is already
Yes,
March,
sir.
Dr. Henry.
Man, March, March, March. Listen, it seems like March is marching away. I mean,
Yeah.
in just a
Yes,
little while, we
indeed.
will be in April in about 2 weeks, man. And
Mercy.
this kind of marks an important part of the PRT's history, man. I think almost around 2 months ago, not 2 months ago, 2 years ago,
That's
we got
right.
started around this time, Doc.
We are 2 years old, everybody, and there's just two of us today. Now, we're not marking the anniversary by that. Pastor Wade, matter of fact, on the way, y'all bear with me. I'm going to see if I can bring Pastor Wade in vicariously. This
All
is
right.
very tacky, very, very tacky, but I'm going to see if I can make it work.
Let's bring him in. I know this man has been.
He's
Oh, there you
real
go.
big.
Listen, this man has been preaching the gospel today. And I think he's going to be coming on in just a little bit. But I tell you, a lot is happening in the PRT team. And I think it's good time to tell our listeners that, listen, this Sabbath, we started at 3. But when we come back on, in our next
right.
episode, we're going to start at 4 o'clock. Give you time to do your appeal, Pastor Paul, so you come on back and be a part of the PRT, man.
I hear you. Well, listen, we are excited about season 5 is coming up, but we're going to be taking a 2-week break after today. So there's going to be 2 weeks where there'll be no Pastors Roundtable, and then we will be back the beginning of April to kick off season 5. And we're excited about season 5 and everything that is going to be happening with that. Listen, Pastor Wade should be joining us in just a few moments. I see that question in the chat there. I also see my wife saying that I am wearing a jacket today. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. But listen, man, last week, right quick, Dr. Henry, last week, talk to us.
Yes.
If people are joining us today, what did they miss last week?
Listen, they miss Stormin' Norman, man. They're my man. Oh, the evangelist. Let me tell you something. We had a good time with Pastor, Elder, Dr. Stephen Norman. Look, he was telling us, man, on as a church, man, how do things work? What's this system in our church, and how does things work in the inside, man? And so we appreciate Norman, how to handle these crises. You know, when the crisis comes, what do we do with it? How do we handle it? And he really got into it. I appreciate him. And it's good to know that our church, we have a system, right? We have a plan. And he was actually telling us we need to read the plan, right? So that we'll be prepared for a crisis and how to respond appropriately.
And he joined us, for those of you that may not know, he joined us as he is the communications secretary for the South Central Conference. And so we spent some time talking about, how do you lead in a crisis, and like what's going on over in Ukraine, and Zelensky as a leader facing a crisis. How do you communicate to your people? What are some of the things? And so we looked at what's going on in the modern sense over there in Ukraine, and we kind of compared some things that are happening in our local churches as well. How do we communicate in the midst of a crisis? And we learned some awesome stuff. There was a word, Dr. Henry, and it's escaping me not right now.
Lament.
That in the midst of crisis, you've got to learn. A leader has to be able to communicate to his people. That you've got to be able to let people lament. And there's a biblical undergirding, there's a theological undergirding of what that is and what that means, and how it allows people to be able to release before you begin to really address and deal with the issues of a catastrophe, like some of the things that we're seeing happening in our world right now. So if you missed last week's program, you're in luck. It's up on the YouTube channel. If you've not subscribed to the YouTube channel, Pastors Roundtable, you want to go ahead and do that. Last I looked, Dr. Henry, we were right around 820 something subscribers. We're trying to get to 1,000. So if you've not subscribed, I want to invite you to do that today. I'm trying to figure out, should we try to stall a little bit more for Pastor Wade?
Just give him a little time. The man just preached, man. He preached. I know it was a powerful message, and I know he's going to be coming on soon. So you can text him to see. Yeah.
So we need people to do something, Dr. Henry, right now before we get in and bring our guest on. This is going to be phenomenal guest and great program today. But
yeah, we need some people. We need your help. That's it, right? You. We need your help. Today, we want you to share. Let them know that something great is happening here at the PRT. And guess what? Let them know that Roger is coming on, right? Because I know he brings the crowd, right? Please, tell them, man, Roger he's coming on. And so I know that some people will come on because of his connection and his blessings and the presence that he gives. So please share. A lot of things on the Pastor's Roundtable is these are just edifying information, things that we can use in ministry. And I tell you, you just don't want to miss. This is like a workshop every Sabbath. We're bringing in experts. We're bringing in people who are on the front lines. And so just gleaning from their wisdom is going to help us to move forward in ministry. So if you have a pastor, if you are a pastor, if you have an elder, if you have some people from your team, your ministry team, and you just want to know how ministry is, how could it be relevant? How could it be real? Share this feed to them. And I know that they'll be blessed by the presentation today, especially today, because we're really getting real today.
Yeah, you're good at this, man. All right. Listen, we see Jennifer Sharon in the chat. And Ms. Sharon, always good to have you with us, joining us from snowy Collegedale, Tennessee.
Wow. Can I say something?
Is back
Pastor
with
Paul?
us. Yes, sir.
Pastor Paul, Jennifer Sharon has been with us from the very beginning.
Oh, yeah.
I think she was on the first program that we had. Yeah. She was with us. And I think there's some other people that have been with us on the first program. If you've been with us on the first program, can we just let them do a thumbs up? Is that all right? Can we do a thumbs up?
If you've been with us since season 1,
yes,
let's see a thumbs up in the chat. If you can figure out a thumbs up, and if you can't figure out the thumbs up and how to get that emoji, just hit the number 1. Number 1, either thumbs up or number 1. If you've been, hey, there's our classmate, schoolmate, Audrey Nelson.
Dr. Nelson.
A thumbs up. We see a thumbs up from Sister Cindy P. There's a Myrna Harris. She's raising her whole hand. She said, I'm not just doing a thumb, I'm doing the whole hand. There's Idris Lawrence. There's Mama Patrick. There's Felicia. There is my cousin Andrew Brown from Berrien Springs, Michigan. He's putting a 1 in there. All right. We know that there are, there's Lorraine Blake with a thumbs up.
Come on. Yeah.
Valerie Singleton with a since season 1. Cynthia Simpson has her thumbs up. Wow. There's this is good. We've got lots of names that I'm seeing that I may not have recognized were there from the very beginning.
That's right. We have a lot of supporters. Praise the Lord. Praise God.
All right. Well, listen, let's not belabor this any longer. I am anxious to get to our guest. I know he is anxious to join us today. So let's have a word of prayer, Doc, and then let's wait till we bring the guest on. Let's say, what is on the table today, Dr. Henry? What are we talking about today?
All right. Today, let me tell you something. A lot has been going on in the news. For those of you who've been paying attention, some horrific situations that are happening. And right now, we want to deal with Ukraine. We want to deal with the ministry of mercy. What's happening with ADRA as it relates to this, this horrific scene. A lot of people are leaving Ukraine because of the war. And so we wanted to see, what is our church? How's our church helping and supporting those individuals at such a time of crisis? So that's on the table today.
All right. And so we have joining us today, ADRA. You are familiar with ADRA International. That's the Adventist Development Relief Agency International. And we have Mario. I'm going to pronounce his last name wrong. And trust me, it's because of my accent, my English accent. Oliveira, he's going to pronounce it correctly when he comes on. But we are just excited to have him with us today. And so we're going to bring him on. Oh, I got to bring Roger's picture in on the next scene too, because it's going to be empty as well. But here he is, ladies and gentlemen. We are excited and delighted and privileged and honored to have Mario to take the time out to be with us today. And we're going to give him just a minute or two to introduce himself, to share with you a little bit about himself and his office and what he does, just after we begin with a word of prayer. Dr. Henry, would you have that word of prayer for us, please?
Let's pray. Father, this discussion is so critical. It gives us an understanding, Lord, of what's happening with your people. And it helps us, Father, to figure out how we can support those individuals, Lord, that are displaced. So bless this conversation today, God. Help it to be impactful. And thank you for our guest, Lord, who's willing to come on. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. All right, Mario, we're delighted, we're pleased and honored to have you with us. Why don't you just share a little bit with our audience, a little bit more about where you are, what your office does, and just what's going on with you generally right now.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me and for inviting me for this so exciting program. It's a privilege to be here and to share this afternoon something about the work of ADRA. To introduce myself, so my name is Oliveira. As you have understood, I am Portuguese. I was born in Angola and I married with an Italian. So it's a little bit of a mix in our family. We have 3 children and each one was born in a different country. This is because we have been serving ADRA for over 22 years. Before coming here to ADRA International, 4 years ago, I was the country director of ADRA France in Paris. Before that, I was a couple of years in Spain, in Madrid with ADRA Spain. And before that, I was in Brussels for our regional office for Europe, the liaison office at that moment. And I started ADRA in 1998 in Angola. And during 4 years, I was in a difficult context that it was a civil war between the government and rebels. So yes, this is in a nutshell what is my past and my work with ADRA in these last years. My background is sociology. I'm not a pastor. I'm a son of a pastor. And interestingly, I say I never felt the call to be a pastor. I was far away to imagine that I will be working in the GC one day in ADRA. So God has amazing plans for us that we cannot imagine. And if we work with Him. Our unit in ADRA here in ADRA International, I have a master in humanitarian action, and that's why I'm leading a dream team, which is the EMU, Emergency Management Unit, which we are the first responders when there is an emergency, when there is a disaster, and it can be war, refugees, can be flooding, can be earthquake, hurricanes. We are the first one before the institutional donors are able to start releasing funds for ADRA. We are already ready to go in the first hours and to start responding. So this is in a nutshell what we do here at ADRA International.
Wow, that's fascinating. Both your wealth of experience and where you've been, where you've had the privilege of serving, and we just want to say right out the back, man, thank you so much for your service and for what you have done and are doing, putting hands and feet on the gospel. We in the pulpit, we get to every week preach about it. But it's exciting to know that there are people in so many different parts of the world that are making it even more pragmatic and more practical by being the hands and feet of Jesus in the world around us. So thank you again so much for your work and what you've done.
Right. And thank you so much for coming. To at this time, especially of what's happening, and I know ADRA is busy doing a lot of great work. To come and just kind of share, a little bit about what's happening there and how we can get involved is tremendous. So thank you so much for coming and being a part of this program. Pastor Paul, why don't you ask that first question for us?
Okay, so obviously we have been saturated, inundated with news coming out of Ukraine. This conflict that just is burst upon the scene. At least to many of us, it seems like it was just kind of overnight. I suspect there were things that led to it, but give us a sense of the humanitarian situation in Ukraine. And what has been the Adventist Church's response, or have we responded? And if we have, then what has been the response up to this point? And then is there a difference between what the Adventist Church has done, just as the church there in Ukraine, and then the role that ADRA may have been playing in that response up to this point?
Mm-hmm. So since day one, ADRA was responding. We have a strong office of ADRA Ukraine. They have been already active in the eastern part of Ukraine, the Donbass area, Lubansk and Donetsk. And you remember, since Crimea was annexed by Russia in 2014, and there was also some separatists in this area. So ADRA has been very active, and we have a strong presence in the area. We were working in water and sanitation projects and hygiene. We were working in food security, food distribution, and protection. We were working with the funds from the European Union, from the American government, from UNICEF, from United Nations. So we had a strong team able to respond for this emergency. And the first days, so it started in the 24th of February. It was a Thursday. On Friday, we had our first conference call with just the heads of ADRA. And we were all surprised what's going on. We none of us expected, and ADRA started responding according with the needs, but very fast. ADRA had to suspend activities in the eastern part because these were one of the hotspots of this war. So we had the office in Kiev, and we started planning how could we reinforce the capacity of ADRA Ukraine. And on Sunday, we had a decision to send one person from ADRA International, Alex Balint, and he flew the same day on Sunday, 27th, to Romania, to North Romania, to support the office and to start putting a team we call a ERT, Emergency Response Team, in place to increase the capacity. And he flew on this Monday, and at the same time there was someone from Hope Channel here at the GC that was also flying to the same place, Vyacheslav, who is Ukrainian.
Oh, wow.
And they both met together at the airport. They knew that they were going. And together during this flight to Europe and to Romania, they put together a plan how Hope Channel and ADRA could work together. And when they arrived there, we had already made plans to fund a project with the church through Hope Channel, and we call this project Hope for Ukraine. We immediately released $200,000 for this initial project, and the idea was to using the structures of the churches. How could we provide help in Ukraine? So since day one, ADRA Ukraine and the church, we were working together hand on hand, and we were using the structure of Hope Channel to provide this help. The situation has been deteriorating. ADRA Ukraine had to stop all the operations for security reasons, but through the churches we keep supporting. And at the time being, okay, in the eastern part today is no security. Kiev is no longer safe, so all our staff that were in the headquarters in Kiev, they have been evacuated. Some of they are mainly in the western part of Ukraine, Mukachevo, Lviv, and the third one I will tell you in a moment. And ADRA, I'm quite proud to say that ADRA Ukraine never stopped in Chernayut. ADRA Ukraine never stopped working. Even if the people were deployed and we were supporting church members, non-church members, Ukrainian, and we were doing this effort to help people to move on. And then the countries around Romania start also receiving refugees. So we have offices in all of these countries, Romania, Hungary, Slovakia, Poland. They also didn't have capacity, so we had to search capacity, send people from abroad to, in the first 3 weeks, to increase the capacity. And they have been doing extraordinary work, day and night, thousands and thousands of volunteers from churches that have been putting tents in the borders, receiving the refugees, distributing food, clothes, protection, or shelter. The church in Romania is the biggest church in Europe, over 60,000 Adventists. They put 2,000 places available to refugees through in the youth camps, in the schools, in other places, institutions. They have available 2,000 places, and they have been filling little by little. The same thing in Poland. Poland, the church is doing a huge job. Church, and I say church and ADRA together, with volunteers, with the youth department. And the initial project of these $200,000, now it's over already almost $1.5 million, but it has been increasing. And as long as the churches are operational and they can work, we are supporting there. It's a little bit complicated how we can make the money reach the churches, because they already use all the money that they had. We promised that we will pay and we will reimburse all the costs that these churches were working, assisting the refugees. This was the initial $200,000, but this has been used, and we are continuing and keep supporting the projects and the work that these churches are doing. And it's amazing. We give them autonomy to decide by themselves what is the needs, because in one church can be food, in another can be shelter, another can be transportation to evacuate, another can be mattresses. We give them autonomy to decide and to implement the project themselves.
Oh wow, that's fascinating. And that's huge.
Yeah. I was going to say, Pastor Paul, so it sounds like there is this direct communication, hands-on, knowing exactly what is needed, and getting those supplies and resources quickly.
Yeah.
And I think you said that it's filling up quickly as well. So I guess, are they making more spaces and things available for more of the Ukrainians?
Are you speaking in Ukraine or in the neighboring countries?
In the neighboring countries.
Yes, we are scaling up the response also in the neighboring countries. The most part of the refugees from Ukraine, they will not stay in the neighboring countries. They will pass, just because they have families in other countries. So those who have families, relatives, people they know, these countries, they are not staying. Some of them are staying, of course. There's a great community of Ukrainians in Poland, for instance, in Hungary also, and some of them, but others are also going to Austria, Italy, France, as far away as Portugal and Spain. So what we are doing is mobilizing the entire network in Europe to receive these refugees, and how we can protect them since the border until the destination. And once arrived to the destination, how can we help to integrate them? Because this is a long-term crisis.
Yeah.
This is not going to finish in a week or a month or even a year. The European Union is giving already 3 years residency to these Ukrainian. This is because it's a long term. So we are preparing, and we are having twice a week. The first time we started, it was on the 28th of February, on the Monday. We start twice a week network calls. So where we coordinate the aid, what are the needs, where are the capacity, where are the staff, the resources, and how we can coordinate this. So our role as ADRA International, it's not so much to be the ones doing, but being the ones coordinating and letting others doing by themselves. So how can we increase the capacity in the country?
Just a clarification, Mario. Well, first of all, we want to welcome our third part of this team of host with 2 first names, Roger Wade. Thank you, Raj. We appreciate you showing up, man. We are glad that you made it.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed. But then, Mario, I just wanted to clarify. So ADRA was already in Ukraine before this thing happened, or did we put a team in once the crisis began?
No, we had already a team with a country director, programs directors, financial officers. It was a team of about 30 people working in ADRA Ukraine, because they had projects to support these IDPs, internal displaced people in Luhansk and Donetsk region. So yes, it was operational. ADRA Romania was already operational, Poland, etc. They were not prepared for this magnitude of this disaster. That's why we are sending people just to support the increase of activities. But all these countries around, they had offices running. And it's interesting because now the NGOs, very few NGOs have offices running in the neighboring countries and in Ukraine. So we have been approached by several NGOs and donors that want to partner with ADRA. So now it's almost the opposite. We have to say, hold on. We don't have probably the capacity for all the money that you are offering us. And we have to be careful that we cannot accept more than that we have capacity to do. So we are surging capacity in the countries. External at the beginning, but the goal is to send people that they can raise the capacity themselves inside. That's why the last person that we deployed this week arrived on Thursday, and is a director of human resources from ADRA International, because we want increase the capacity of ADRA Ukraine, and this person will help how to select the right people for the right positions.
Wow.
Ukrainian people. I'm not speaking of Americans or Europeans. No, we are speaking of Ukrainian people to increase the capacity of ADRA Ukraine.
Wow.
It's the time when ADRA was sending people that will stay for 2, 3, 4, 6 months in an emergency. Now it's much more increase the capacity in the country
Of the local. Okay. Wow. That's huge. That's good.
I want to talk about the Ukrainian pastors, and I know you just touched on the congregations. How are they? Again, we can only imagine the amount of stress, displacement. I mean, just watching the news and listening to some of the stories of what has taken place and how families are just separated. I mean, the men are staying back to fight, and it's just just horrific to watch. Do you know how they are coping with this? Do you have any intel and insight on how people are coping with this? Are there, I don't know, support groups? How are they dealing with this based on your intel?
In the past, or specifically, I don't have this kind of information, but I can share a little bit what ADRA staff is coping. And So we had programs director. So the country director, he moved away to. May I share eventually with you
Sure. Yes.
a map? I think it's easier if we understand through the map what these places. And wait a second, probably here. I'm trying. Yes, here it is. So I'm sharing with you now. If I find you, yes, here we go. The window.
Comes.
Okay, can you see?
Yes. Okay. There we go.
Okay, here is a map of Ukraine. You can see in red is where our team, with the ERT, Emergency Response Team, is based in Romania. So we have ERC, the Emergency Response Coordinator. We is Alex from ADRA International. We have Eric from South America, from Brazil, that went there. We have Walter, that came also from ADRA International, from our team. We have CC Cruz, the HR specialist, and we have someone who is remotely deployed from Argentina. So he's working on this team, Elian Giaccherini, even if he's in Argentina, but it's only working for this team. So here are the current projects that we are working with the church in Ukraine. And let me move a little bit here. So we move the activities mainly for the western region of Ukraine. We have, wait, yes, now here it is. So Kiev is here. Here is where we have a huge warehouse. We have facilities. Is in Mukachevo, and where we had the country director. In Chernihiv, we have the finance officer. So she came. She's name is Juliana. She came with her family, and she's based in Chernihiv. In Lviv now is the programs director. So the programs director, he was in Kiev, and there is a seminar in Bucha where ADRA has its office. And we had students in Bucha in this seminar, and only this week we were able to evacuate them. So it was very complicated, a lot of prayers. It took us 48 hours to move them, so they are safe. The country director, he moved his wife and his daughter of 1 year old to Lviv, to some families, and he wanted to stay longer in Kiev to support the activities of ADRA. But at a certain moment, it was impossible. And we had to tell him to get evacuated. He could not stay. He was under the shelling. This week on Monday, so we had these network calls that I mentioned. And a certain moment, so he was also in the call. We had almost 100 people in the call from all around the world, Japan, Australia, Europe, US, Brazil. And a certain moment when we asked him to give his situation report, he was speaking. So he was outside to get connection. He was outside his shelter, and we could hear the bombing as a background noise. And it was very short. It was like 5 minutes that he did the presentation. And we told him to go back to the shelter, bombing shelter. But it's a high level of stress, definitely. And the ones that suffer the most are children. And these will stay with scars for years. That's why some of the projects that we want to work is psychosocial support, PSS. It's not only giving the food. Sometimes we think ADRA is giving the food, but sometimes there are other needs that are much more deeper, much more important. And psychosocial support is definitely a strong component of our projects that we are doing, not only here inside Ukraine, but also outside with refugees. Mental health, it's very important. And it's important not only the mental health of the refugees, but also the mental health of the humanitarian workers. And we use an image that when you are in a plane and there is a problem with the pressure, so you have first to put your oxygen mask before putting in the others, in your children, because you have to be in good health before being able to assist the others. So this is also an important aspect that we as ADRA we pay attention, is the mental health of the humanitarian workers that we deploy and that are in the field.
Wow. I'm listening to you talk, and I'm imagining that some of us and some of our audience is probably thinking, like, man, we need ADRA in our local churches here where we are. This level of organization and yeah, that's fascinating, and just hearing you share that, I think makes us glad that we're a part of this church, a part of what's going on.
May I share one thing, please?
Yes.
This is the report that we received, the daily report of the Hope for Ukraine. So you see the partnership between ADRA and Hope Channel. The daily report that we received on the 9th so it was on Wednesday, and you can read it, a missile that hit the church in Nikolaev.
Okay, we're still seeing the map right now.
You are still seeing the map, so
yes,
wait a second. I'm stop sharing, and now I'm trying to put it here, and I'm gonna share with you another one. So let me see if I share. Oh, here it is. Can you see it now?
Okay. There you go.
Boom. There it is.
Yes.
This is the Hope for Humanity, a project that we are working, Hope Channel, the one that I told you. And this is a missile that hit the church in Nikolaev. So on March 8th, a Russian missile that has 8 meters long that landed in a churchyard in Nikolaev. This is in the southern, near the Black Sea, between Odessa and Crimea. And the church was packed with people in the basement of the church that were hiding from the shelling. And they prayed, and God answered immediately. If there was an explosion, there will be nothing left of the church. And the Lord continues to protect his children through Ukraine, which is now suffering from military aggression. So you can see here the picture of the bomb in the yard of the church that didn't explode. And at that moment, the church was full of people. So I think that God is answering the prayers that are being done here in the US and all around the world. And I was speaking with Arton this week, and I said, remember the story of Elijah and the servant, that he could not see the angels around, and Elijah asked the servant, asked God to open the eyes to see the angels. And I told him, listen, we cannot see, but if our eyes could be open, we will see that at that moment, probably Ukraine is one of the brightest places in the world with so many angels there. It's important that we don't forget that it's not only in Ukraine that is war. There is war in Yemen. There is war as we speak in Ethiopia. There is war in other parts in DRC. And it didn't start 2 weeks ago. It started 2 years ago, 20 years ago. And it's important to remind that there is others. Probably we only see Ukraine, but there is other people, other places that people are suffering. There are 70 million refugees or displaced around the world. If it was in a country, this will be the 20th country in population in the world. So it's people that are suffering, and it's important to pray and to help these people as we can.
You said it would be the which country in the world if it was a country?
20th country by world population.
20th.
Number 20.
20th.
Wow.
Number
Wow.
20.
20th.
My goodness. That's a
Woo!
lot.
Mario, man, you have inspired me. I've worked with ACS here in the United States. We are just blessed by being able to do so much in our sphere. But what I'm hearing here is truly a miracle of what God is doing. So the question I have for you is, in terms of every need is urgent need. Well, what would you consider the most urgent need of the people in general, and maybe even the need of other Adventists? I imagine there are a number of Adventists who are coming through as refugees. What are some of the needs they have that we can begin as a people on this side of the world to begin to address?
Around 20 years ago, the humanitarian world started to work on what we call CVA, Cash Voucher Assistance. And it's not only ADRA, it's I will say, the large majority of professional NGOs that we work each day or more and more on CVA. CVA is basically, instead of giving food, of giving medicines or giving health, if the market is still functioning, if there is still structure, we give them money. And why do we give money? Because they know better than us what are the needs. And for one family,
Mm,
it can be food. For another family, it can be, I don't know, medicines. It can be diapers. It can be to pay the hotel to stay. It can be eventually to buy a battery for my telephone that I need to communicate with my family, or a SIM card. So, and we trust the people, and it's a question of dignity even, because when I go to the supermarket and I have a voucher, I have a credit card, or I have money, I'm not inferior or below the others clients in this store, because they don't know who I am, and I have the freedom and the dignity to choose what I need the most, and it's important. So we as ADRA, we work uh, more and more in CVA, which is providing the refugees the capacity to decide by themselves what they need the most. And of course, we also support. So this is the number one need. Of course, today in Ukraine, we are considering, and we started doing CVA, and we are still doing in Ukraine. We are helping over 5,700 families in CVA projects. It's faster, it's quicker, it doesn't require a lot of headaches in logistics. Um, so, for several of reasons, the number one priority is money that we work. When the market doesn't exist or starts to fall, yes, in this case is when we enter with food, with shelter, with health, psychosocial support, as I mentioned. It's important also that, and these I have repeated again and again during the meetings that we had with the network. I prefer to have 10 projects in one instead of having 10 projects in 10 different sectors. So for a question of effectiveness, it's better that we work, for instance, only in food or only on health, instead of trying to do a little bit of everything. Because there is others NGOs that are also working, and other doesn't have to do everything. And it's better to do a specialist instead of doing a generalist, because we don't imagine, but there is meetings of coordination between the different NGOs in the different sectors. So if I have to attend 10 different sectors, I will lose my time in 10 hours instead of doing just 1 hour in one sector, and I can support 10 projects in this sector. So we try to focus on fewer sectors, one, maximum two sectors, and how we can provide. And this, at this moment, Also, it depends the countries. Romania, we give freedom to each country to decide in which sectors they want to work. We do not impose, because in one country can be, I don't know, health, and another one can be shelter, as we have seen in Romania, and another one can be food, if they have an army of volunteers that are cooking and preparing hot meals and sandwiches. That's great. Let's keep at each one the sectors that they choose, but let's try to coordinate and see how we can be the most effective. And this is a little bit how our role in ADRA International, how we can coordinate and how we can be an effective humanitarian agency that works with others also, and help the most effectively way.
Nice, nice.
Wow. Yeah. And that's fascinating. Just to follow up, I know you mentioned the psychosocial support. I'm curious, what does that look like?
It's basically there is different levels of psychosocial support. People as people who pass through these stressful situations, they need to get out and to speak what it is inside. And we, of course, we need to train people to. It's not everyone who can be trained on this. And I know that ADRA here, not ADRA, ACS in the United States, they have done a lots of work with pastors, training pastors to give mental health support to victims of disasters, and basically is that. And it's not everyone who is qualified. It has to pass through the training. What are the questions that we have to ask? How we can give time? How we can direct the questions? And how the people can express and share and cry also, because it's a way to cope with the magnitude of the suffering that there is inside. And eventually pray. Why not pray? It's interesting that we have to offer, but not to impose. And it's a good way also to share that this person is not alone. And we know that in the majority of the countries, or the majority of the world population, they believe in God. So it's a good opportunity to pray with them and to show that they are not alone. But yes, mental health and psychosocial support is part of this. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not a specialist, but this is one part important of our project. And as I said, there is different levels. There is a level that with a little training, people can provide psychosocial support. There are some cases where it's needed really specialists and psychologists and psychiatrists on this. But this is already another level more advanced on support on mental health.
Wow, fascinating.
There's a question on that real quick before you go. I was going to say a question before you go on your question, Pastor Wade. So with this mental health initiative, I know you say you train some pastors, and you also partnership with other agencies as well to give, help in this area.
Yes, of course. It's not only ADRA who is providing this mental health. Other organizations are doing MSF. I will not say all of them that I know, but they are supporting also. It becomes an important part of the humanitarian work that we provide. It's another one is protection, how we can make safe, especially children and women. These are the main ones leaving Ukraine. So how we can keep a safe environment, even within our churches. This is an important aspect that we are paying attention, safeguarding, protection, to avoid sexual harassments and because these people are vulnerable. And how can in the environment, when we provide shelter, when we provide food, when we provide mental health, how we can also integrate protection in the projects that we provide to reduce the risk of being others taking advantage of these beneficiaries. So this is also an important element that we integrate in our projects. But yes, definitely there are others that are doing, and we try to do. That's the importance of coordinated. Not everyone is doing the same thing, because if everyone start doing psychosocial support, at a certain moment nobody is giving food or nobody is giving water. So it's important to each one do one thing, and how we can coordinate. There is one UN organization, United Nations, is OCHA, is the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Assistance, and we work with them with the civil protection of each country. In the US, the name is FEMA. In other countries, they have a different name. So we also coordinate with them, with the government. We coordinate with United Nations, and we coordinate with Red Cross, and of course the governments and the donors. So ADRA is not the only one. We are a part of a puzzle, a piece of a puzzle in all these response that we have. But definitely one thing that we have seen, we have been approached by lots of NGOs that are, I will not say jealous or envious, but they don't have the same network that we have through the Adventist Church inside Ukraine. And we have already in place this network, and we can use, and we are using them to provide assistance, not only to Adventists, but to everyone who needs.
So Mario, just before we go to our reset, you shared about being able to go in and share, even share our faith. Coming from the United States, we are very cautious or we are trained that we should not be kind of brandishing our faith when we go to help people. Is that the same internationally, in light of the fact that you share most of the world does believe in God? Is it a different kind of way that you can actually have your faith brandished as you're sharing and helping people? How is it in terms of the atmosphere for that?
Well, if it is here in Europe, you should live in France, where it is much more, it's much more strong. You cannot do that. And ADRA, we as ADRA, I think it was Saint Thomas of Aquin who said, preach all the time the gospel, use words if necessary. So we are preaching our gospel. ADRA and ACS and every initiative, and even other NGOs, we are preaching the gospel with our hands, with our arms, with our feet, and if necessary, use words. Of course, we cannot propose to everyone, let's go and pray. But if we need, if we see, and pay attention, we do not proselytize, and we do not do evangelism, and we do not take advantage of people who are in a weak position. But if someone comes and asks, who are you? Or he says, I'm also a Christian, could you please pray for me? Of course I will pray for this person. But I cannot go and say, please let me pray for you. Probably the person doesn't believe in God, so I cannot impose, and I have to respect. But if they know, we do not hide our identity. ADRA, the first word, the first A of ADRA, what it means? Adventist. So we do not hide who we are. Our identity, it's Adventist. And they know that we are Adventists. They know the Adventist Church. As I said, Romania has the biggest Adventist population in Europe. Number 2 is Ukraine with 42,000. So the Adventist Church is widely known in these, at least in these two countries. Probably much less in Poland or Slovakia and Hungary. But if they know and if they approach, yes, of course, we will pray with them, but never imposing, because Jesus didn't impose. Jesus asked them to follow them. And Jesus was, when he did this, the 10 lepers, he didn't ask to them to become followers before helping them. He helped them first. And then just one came back to say thank you. So this is the same principle that we use.
Mm.
All right. Well, we're going to ask our guest and our audience to stay put for just a moment. We're going to be right back with our guest, Mario Oliveira. But there's first a couple of things that we want to share. Uh-oh, there's that picture again.
Yeah, we got the real thing, baby. We got the real thing, man.
Well, we are delighted to have everybody with us again today on this particular show. It is our 2-year anniversary, Roger. We've been doing this for 2 whole years. And somebody's looking at Pastor Paul saying, and he hasn't shaved his beard in none of them 2 years.
There was a different look at the beginning.
That's right.
Absolutely.
There was a different look, man. The background was different, right?
Yes.
Not just
yes,
us, but the whole.
Yeah,
but we've been on this road for a good while, so we just praise God for the ministry. Hey, listen, man, relevant show today. ADRA, frontline workers, they're right there helping out this horrific event that has happened there in Ukraine.
It makes you want to say, all right, I'm gonna pack right up and I'm heading over there, because you just hit. Listen, the story about the bomb not exploding in the churchyard.
Mercy.
Oh my goodness!
Mercy.
Wow. God is good.
You know what also jumped out to me was that Mario knew the names of the people who were staffing the offices there and who were involved and who were engaged, and that's powerful. I mean, knowing the people that are there, the people that are there to help, and this has just been fascinating. So if you were just joining us, our audience, if you're just joining us and you didn't catch the beginning of our discussion today, we have with us from ADRA International, Mario Oliveira, and he has been talking to us, sharing with us what some of the crises that some of the issues that we're seeing in the crisis over in Ukraine. I think Dr. Henry, also what was interesting that he was very keen in pointing out is that Ukraine is not the only situation that the world is experiencing right now. That even though I almost said the movie cameras, but the TV cameras and news cameras are highlighting what's going on there. But there are over 20 million.
No, 70 million. I think he said 70 million.
Oh, 70 million?
70 million. And it would be the 20th largest country.
That's right. Boom. Man,
I mean, and you're right, Pastor Paul. I mean, it's amazing. Other things are happening in this world. There are other tragedies, other catastrophes. There's other things that are going on. And we just have to be mindful that we're in a world, man, that is just suffering right now, waiting for Jesus to come. And in the gap, we want to make sure that we do our part to support people who are suffering.
Good stuff. Well, listen, Raj, there's a couple of things we want to remind our audience of at this 2-year anniversary for the PRT. What are those things that they need to know?
Listen, first of all, we just want to say thank you. We could not be doing this without you. Your encouragement, your prayers, and your support. You have been very supportive of PRT when we ask you. And so we're asking you, if we want to continue, we're preparing for our season 5 opener in a couple of weeks. But we need your support. We need your help in helping us to keep the level of what we're doing there. We're asking you to continue to support us. Go to the support page on our website. Share with us what you want to see happen on PRT. We want to make it relevant. We want to walk your street. So not only do you like us on Facebook and on YouTube, or you get notification or subscribe on YouTube, support us in our support of trying to do ministry that's relevant, resource, and real in these days.
Good stuff. All right. Well, we're going to rejoin our guest now. Mario, it has just been a fascinating discussion so far, and thank you so much for giving us so much of this information. And I think our audience is saying, what did I just see? I saw Denise saying he taught us a
Yeah.
lot in this
Right.
little time period. This is amazing information, and we have to continue to be prayerful. Thank you so much for that, Denise. All right, so um, Mario, do you know of like any specific stories from our team that you've heard about any particular? I know you shared with us the thing with the church, and that was just huge. Are there any like any other individual stories that come to mind that involve some of our work, whether it is directly in Ukraine, whether it is in the neighboring countries, Romania, Hungary, etc., or even some of those other places that where ADRA is working right now that may be of interest to our audience to just get a handle and see the kind of work that ADRA is doing and the challenges that they face?
I mean, probably there are lots of them, but remember, I'm not in the field. I'm
Yes.
5,000 miles from the field, and our role is more on coordination. But there is one story definitely that it catch my attention, my eye. We deployed, so it was on the 2nd of March. Michael Pitch, he's our disaster preparedness specialist in ADRA International. He's based in Australia, and we moved him from Brisbane, where he lives, to Poland to support the border. And he arrived in Poland. I think it was on a Wednesday. Yes, so on the 2nd of March. And the day after, he went to the border. And when he was in the border, so he had a vest with the ADRA logo, like I have here, and all the ADRA volunteers, church volunteers, they are identified with the vests green with the ADRA logo. And in one of the tents, so there was a friend of him that they met like 20 years ago. I think it was from Serbia, that he had been a refugee when there was this conflict in Yugoslavia, and he received help from ADRA. And now again he was living, because he was living in Ukraine, and again he saw ADRA. So 20 years ago he saw ADRA, and who will meet? He will meet Michael Pitch, who is there. And Michael was telling me, man, I will never imagine that 20 years later I will find this person here in the midst of the border in Poland, when there is thousands and thousands of people crossing the border. And by coincidence, we meet here, and he did some videos and posted in YouTube. So definitely, yes, there is like these much other stories, how God has worked, and he's keeping working on the lives and protection of people in Ukraine and all around the world. But definitely, it may make us remember that we are not alone, that we serve a powerful and mighty God, and he has resources that we don't have idea that he can put at our disposal. In another occasion, we were ADRA has been chosen by or has been approached by one organization in Norway to be the main responder in Romania and Moldova. So this is also answer to prayers, because we have a capacity to deploy people to increase the response that we are providing in those two countries, and at the same time to reinforce the local offices. And I like to say that it's not, sometimes we say ADRA and the church. I prefer to say ADRA and the rest of the church, because ADRA is part of the church, like ACS is not. We are not separate. We are part of the church, and we also preach the gospel, as I said, like ACS, and we have an excellent partnership with ACS. And the name, it does matter. Um, Matthew 25, Jesus will not ask you for which organization we provide food or shelter or water or we visit. They will ask if we did it. So
Mercy.
I think it's not important that we work under the Adventist banner. Of course, it's important. If why not? But if there is no ACS in your church, in your local city, go and volunteer with another one. The important thing is to
Mm.
serve
It's good.
independently of with whom, but
It's
it's
good.
really to be at the service of. And I had the experience of one lady when I was in France. She was responsible for we call ADRA delegation in France. So we have a different system. So ADRA ACS became ADRA, and the churches they have ADRA delegations or antennas. And she wanted to open an antenna of ADRA, and she opened the antenna, but she didn't know how to do work. So she went and she volunteered with the Catholics, with Caritas. So, and volunteering with them, she learned how to do it. And today it's one of the most successful ADRA antennas that we have in France is Dunkirk, because Dunkirk is in the north of France, near the border for the channel for the UK. And there is a refugee camp there, and she was providing help. And the interesting part was that from the volunteers of ADRA, more than half were non-Adventists,
Oh,
were
wow.
Mm.
atheists, were Muslims, were from Catholics, from other religions, but they were taking the vest of ADRA every Sunday and going to refugee camp and providing assistance to those in need. So I think that the closer we are to the field and to those in need, the least we see divisions on religions or on beliefs. Um, we we are closer when we are helping those who need the most.
Wow.
Good
And
So,
that's
stuff.
so,
that's
so,
powerful.
so Mario. But 1 second. So, Mario, there was a question in the chat about how does someone become a worker at for ADRA International? Is it something where you staff these offices, or is it based on volunteerism as it is here in the United States?
So we work with volunteers, but here at the level of the global level of ADRA International, we work with professionals. Even the people that we send for these regions, we have been. Sorry, just the battery is going down. I have to put the juice. We have been receiving hundreds, thousands of requests of people saying, I want to go, please, what should I do to go for ADRA? Or I want to volunteer. We cannot send, I'm so sorry, and thank you for these people who want to go, but we cannot send people without preparation. We have an
Mm.
extensive process that we train about 50, 60 people every year all around the world, because our main goal is to build capacity in the regions or in the countries. We don't want to deploy. We only deploy in as a last resource. So we build capacity in the country that they are able to respond when there is a disaster. If the disaster is bigger than the capacity, in this case, we look for capacity around the country, in the region. So if there is a problem in Tonga or in Fiji, we will search capacity in New Zealand or Australia or Papua New Guinea. And if there is no capacity in the region, this is the third level. In this case, yes, we will send capacity from the network. But at the same time, we will work closely with the local office to build capacity that in 3 weeks, 3 months, we can pull out and they are able to walk by themselves. And these are people that we have to train, we have to teach them, and they have to be able to deal with stress, with these conditions,
Mm.
and be able to respond in an effective way. So it's impossible to train one person in 3 hours or 3 days and send it for this.
Mm.
It's impossible. We have a roster of about 300 people trained and ready to go if necessary. And one can be in finance, one other can be in security, another can be programs manager. We can be also in writing proposals and coordinating the help. So yes, depending the needs that we have, we send the people for it.
I have a question here. So you talk about capacity. How do you arrive at that number or that level and say, well, we reached capacity here? Can you explain a little bit about that?
So the capacity is to see how much money we have available for a project, and if we have human resources in the local office to do properly the project. For instance, do they have systems in place, financial systems? Do they have um, human resources? How it is done, all the financial in the office? Where are the systems that they put in place in human resources, in finance, in protection, in project management, in communication, in I mentioned in sexual harassment, protection and sexual harassment. Do they have a code of conduct? Do they ask the volunteers or the staff to sign this code of conduct? So all of this is part of the capacity, and we assess and we say this office has experience dealing, let's say, with 100,000 project. They can go to up to $400,000 projects, but they cannot
Mm.
manage a $4 million project. It
Mhm.
it will be too much for them. So we will help them. And if they have a project of $4 million project, in this case, we have to bring people from outside and to help them to manage this project. Because the last thing that we want is to receive money from donors. And I'm speaking even private donors, the one that we are fundraising actually, and then don't be able to deliver, to promise one thing
Mm.
that we don't have the capacity. So that's why we say we have to put eventually a financial director, we have to put a programs manager, a coordinator, and in this case we will put top manager positions. We will not put an accounting. Eventually this can be hired locally, but a chief finance officer,
Mhm.
yes,
Yeah.
it's needed, and we put it.
All right, I
Mhm.
got one more question. You've used this term several times, and it's just conjured up in my mind. I watched a lot of movies when I was a kid, James Bond, etc. You said protection, like we're providing protection. Is there an Adventist commando force? Is there a strike force? Is there a bodyguard or Adventist walking around strapped protecting people in these situations? What do you mean when you use the term protection?
Protection is what I said, that the beneficiary feels safe. So it's
Mm.
already the do no harm. So the aid that we are providing, it's adequate and it is in accordance with the needs. And then
Mm.
it's what I mentioned. Provide that when I'm dealing with children, that I will never leave an adult alone with the children. I will not put a children in a position where she can be abused, or a woman alone with a male. I will try to have eventually female doctors to deal with refugees, if in the majority are women. So protection is, it's not army, it's not at all, it's exactly the opposite. Is to how can I make a safe environment where they don't feel threatened. And I have to say, all of the four of us are men. We don't understand what it is to be a woman. sorry to say, but it is the reality. We don't understand the threats that it is to be a woman, and this is why it is important that we don't things that we don't imagine that it is a problem can be a problem for them. So we have to design all the project that, and we have to put in place mechanisms that the beneficiaries can complain if they see an injustice, if they see something that is wrong, that probably I am not seeing. I'm so much busy
Yeah.
taking people from around the world and in money and in the security, and probably I'm not seeing that there is a worker that it's not doing the things properly. So I have to put in place mechanism where the beneficiaries can complain and be protected. They will not be how to say, they will not suffer any pressure because they complain and because they mention something that is wrong. And this is a way not to blame and shame, but to make them protected and safe and be able ourselves as ADRA to how should I say, to see what is going wrong and to fix it. So is the main importance aspect of these complaint mechanisms that we put in place. But protection is how can, when I do the aid, when I provide the food or the medical assistance, make an environment safe for the beneficiary.
Wow. Wow, you got a lot of good safety measures, and you have there's a mechanism, there's a system that ADRA has. That's what I'm learning today, and definitely assume that. But just hearing you kind of describe, listen, we have these markers that we need to meet, and there's this capacity of protection of finances and so forth. It's good to know that we're very organized when we try to give help and assistance. So looking at this situation now, where do you see the most devastation in Ukraine right now, as far as ADRA is concerned? What is the most need, I would say? What's the most need in the country right now, or even out the country?
Peace.
Yes. Yes.
Definitely peace.
Peace is the most needed.
Yeah, but as far as resources and
in the eastern part is definitely it starts to be everything. So what we are doing now, and this is a project funded by Czech Republic, they brought mini buses, and they are evacuating people from the from the east to the west. And it has to be mini buses, small or minivans, because there are so much checkpoints and roadblocks, and sometimes they have to do the U-turn because the road is not safe. So what they do is they go to the east with food and basic needs that are not available, and then they bring people to the west, and they go and forth on this side. So these are mainly on the east side. On the west side, in the moment, is shelter. It's the churches became not places of worship, but became places of protection, of sleeping. People are sleeping in the churches, in the middle of the church. They put aside the chairs and they sleep there in some cases, because it's the only safe they have. They are over 2.5 million refugees. Refugees is when someone let her house or let his house and cross the border, an international border. IDP, or internal displaced person, is someone who let his house but is in the country. So at the time being, there are 2.5 million that left the country, but inside the country, there are around 2 million IDPs. Wow. So it's a lot of people who are moving. And some of them, they don't want to leave the country because they want to stay together, the family. The men, they cannot leave the country. If you are between 18 and 60, you cannot leave the country. So if I want to keep with my family and I have relatives on the west part, I will stay with them. So and where would I stay if I don't have a place, if I don't have a home? So in the west side, the most needed at the time being is shelter. And as I said, we work at the time being is still working is the financial system, the banking system. So we are still providing funds, but we expect already that very soon, in a matter of days or weeks, we will have to pass to start doing humanitarian convoys from Romania, from Slovakia, and from Poland inside Ukraine, bringing food and bringing water and bringing the basic needs. Some of countries are already doing that. Romania, Slovakia, and Poland, they already started doing. But these eventually will have to scale up and be much more with the United Nations capacities.
God. Listen, Mario, our time is getting away or has gotten away from us now, and we're going to need to wrap up. But a couple of things I want to ask. We have the president of one of our universities who's watching today, Oakwood University, Dr. Leslie Pollard. And we know that as college students, they love to be able to do something, to make a difference, to want to help change the world. If Dr. Pollard is leaving here and he's talking to students at the university, and he's sharing with them some of what he's heard today, what would you have him want to share with those students? What would be something? And we've probably got lots of teachers here that are also have classrooms full of kids. What is a message that you would like to share with our university students, with our students of young people? How can they help? How can they be involved? How can they make a difference? What would you share with them?
This Thursday, 2 days ago, I gave a lecture in La Sierra University to one class, and about the humanitarian aid in Ukraine. What is the ADRA work in Ukraine? And then the teacher asked me at the end, what could they do, the students of this class, to show support to other Ukraine? And they did an interesting thing. They took a postal card and they wrote a message for other Ukraine support. And I took a picture of, they sent me the picture and I sent it to other Ukraine.
Oh, wow.
And you cannot imagine how other Ukraine staff were happy to see that people in Los Angeles, in Riverside, were praying for them. And not only praying, but they saw that these messages. The same thing, we have been praying for the people who have been deployed in my Sabbath class. And they wrote this small message, and I took a picture and I sent it. This is one way. Another way that we can do is to share what ADRA is doing, and this is a good way, as you are doing. And of course, through money, donations. Go to adra.org/help now, and you can contribute. And last but not least, the prayers. Prayers is power, and we can definitely pray for peace, for ADRA, for Adventists, non-Adventists, and you can fundraise, you can help, but the sky is the limit. How much in your imagination? Go and do it, but do it something. Don't just plan, but do it. God will bless you.
Yes. Thelma Mundy says, great insight on what ADRA is doing. I donated today to ADRA as I returned my tithe and offering. It was a new slot on the envelope, and I am glad I trusted it and sent it. Well, we'll contribute again. Wow.
But listen, we have a question from Philbert, who actually asked this question. I think maybe our listeners would like to know, how is ADRA funded on a regular basis? Is it just from private donations, or is there a line on the GC budget for ADRA International?
It's mainly through private donations and government contributions, also funding grants. But we have to understand one thing: because we pay our taxes. So one part of the taxes that we pay go for humanitarian aid. that goes from government to government. This is all over the country. It's not only in the US. And one part of this money goes very small. I don't think it's a big part, but it's a very little part goes to humanitarian aid and development. And the government of a country will support an NGO who has a large supporting basis. So the more funding we have from private donations, the more the governments, the UN, the European Commission, UK, Australia, the more they will support ADRA. So you see, it's a multiplication effort. Through my contributions that I'm doing to ADRA, I am allowing and showing that ADRA has a large support membership. And we are trust. We represent the civil society. And in this case, we are a trusted organization, and the government will fund us. So basically, even if it might be not our main source of funding, but the private donation is very important because it shows the public support for our organization.
Nice. That is so great to hear, because a lot of us feel, we give to our church. We have a very interesting structure for finances, and we think sometimes that takes care of everything, but we know it doesn't. So that just helps us to know if we give, the little we give can help in helping public organizations to give even more, because they see that we are supporting the organization. There was one other question that I saw, guys, in terms of Mrs. Dimitri Taylor. I'm not sure how she got to this point in terms of wanting to take in someone to live with them. So does ADRA help with maybe helping displaced families have housing here in the United States?
I mean, we will be not here in the US, because here is ACS. We will partner definitely with ACS, but here we will support eventually ACS. But here will be ACS will be implementing the projects in the United States. Everything depends on the American government to allow these refugees to come here. But if they come, yes, definitely. We will support through ACS the work here.
Awesome. So one of the things we will do, we'll make sure that we put ACS information on our show notes, and any updates we have, we will definitely put it part of that.
All right. May I share with you one experience that I saw? It was not in Ukraine, but it was in Angola, like 20 years ago. We were doing as ADRA food distribution with the food provided by the World Food Programs from the United Nations. And we were doing, I think it was 4,000 or 5,000 people. They were IDPs displaced by the war. And when people are angry, they become violent. They move and they push and they want to have access to the food. And I was speaking with them. I had the regional director of ADRA with me, and he said, Mario, a couple of years ago, in a country elsewhere in the world, there was a food distribution, and the mob became so violent that the police that was protecting the humanitarian workers, it was not ADRA, it was another NGO, they had to fire and to kill one person. The distribution was altered, was stopped, and the director, the responsible for the distribution, during the night, he couldn't sleep and say, God, how can you help me because we are here to save lives, not to kill people. And through our aid, we are doing this harm. How can you help me? And God showed him that during the multiplication of the bread and the fish, what Jesus did with the crowd. Do you remember?
He had them sit down. He had them organized.
Sit down.
Nah.
They
Yeah.
divided into groups, and Jesus ordered to sit
Ah.
down. So the day after, he went to the food distribution, and how he started again, he asked everyone to sit down. And
Come on.
there was no violence, no more pushing, no more. And when he told me that he was a great leader, this Peter Kunze was his name, because he was never telling me what I should do, but he will tell me a story that was done in another country and let me myself take my conclusion. A great leader. And I say, I think it's a good idea. Let's sit all these people. And we seated all these 4,000 people that were, and all of a sudden, there was no more pushing. They were yelling, of course, because someone else passed in front of them, or someone was receiving food that it was not fair and so on. But they were no longer a threat. They were only sitting up to receive food and to leave, but otherwise settle. So we can see how a 2,000 years principle is still valid here
Oh, wow.
in food
Wow.
distribution here in Africa.
That's good stuff.
Come on. Come on.
All right,
Wow.
we want to field
Listen,
one more
this has been
question from
a great show.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
Hold-
Pastor
hold on,
Paul,
Elder.
a great show, great information. Yes, go ahead, Pastor Paul. I
Yeah,
know you
but-
have something interesting to say. Go ahead, sir.
Well, just
Go
want to field one more question from our audience.
All right.
Dimitri was she's asking about adopting. I want to make sure I'm reading it right. Where is it? How can we adopt orphans? Is there a somebody that we would contact? I'm assuming it's not ADRA, but is there somewhere we could direct if somebody's saying, yes, I want to take an orphan from this conflict or any other conflict into my home? Who would they contact? What would be the place that we would direct them to?
ADRA, we don't do that adoptions because so I don't know to whom to direct. Let's say that and I explain why we don't do adoption. There is one principle that is adoptions at distance or adoption abroad, where the child is in the family and it's adopted at distance. Let's say that it's a complete new domain, but we prefer that the entire community moves one step further instead of one person to move 100 steps further. So we believe very much on the concept of the community and how we can increase the capacities of all the community and not only from one individual. So that's why we do not practice. I'm not accusing, be aware, I'm not accusing the organizations that do that. And if they do, my mother-in-law, she used it to adopt in DRC in Africa, and she did a terrific job. But it's a different perspective. It's a different philosophy that we respect, but it's one that ADRA, we work more in community projects instead of individual projects. Let's put it like that.
And I think we need to. I think we need to be fair based on what I know of ACS. Mario, you hit it on the head. Because of the laws here in the United States, there are some things in terms of how things would transfer over individuals, and so we may need to follow through with asking ACS to ask that question, Ms. Dimitri. So that is something I will follow through on. I'll talk to our ACS leader here and share that there was some interest. And maybe he might be able to shed some light, and we'll put that information on the website for you on that. So I do get what you're saying there, Mario, when it comes to the country. United States may have some rules and regulations that we just may not know about, but may come through other organizations.
I was this morning in the church, and it was being shared that a refugee requested in one of those countries. I don't remember which country it was, but it was an Adventist teacher, and he was from Ukraine. He fled through Russia, and he requested an interview in the American embassy, and they gave him an appointment, January 2023.
Wow.
So it's not, we cannot expect that we will have refugees coming from Ukraine. I don't know. It might be if the American government changed the rules, but I think that it's not going to happen tomorrow. It might take some time. So that's why we are focusing our help or support around the countries that around Ukraine to support the refugees there.
Okay. Listen, I promise this is the last question for me because I know we gotta go. But my wife put it in the chat and then she texted me, so I gotta ask.
Oh, okay. Listen. You better ask that question, then, brother. Go ahead, man.
And it's a good question. It's a very good question, and she's asking, when we donate through some other platforms, whether it's through our local church or some of those, is it better to give directly to ADRA? Or because will ADRA get 100% of what we donate through Adventist Giving or some of those other platforms? So what's the best way to get as much of the donation directly to ADRA as possible?
Listen, here in the US, I'm new and I don't know, and I don't work in finance. So I will not say how it works, how much it goes, how much it doesn't go. What I say that if it goes through the church and if it goes through ADRA, the 100% will arrive in ADRA. It will take longer because from the church it has to go to the conference, from the conference to the union, the division, and the division to the GC. It will take some time, but it will arrive here 100%. But if we want to do it quicker and to get immediately, of course, it's adra.org/help now is the fastest way. But in one way or the other, the money will arrive here. Then, of course, there is percentage that goes to the bank, to the credit card. It's normal. Even when I pay something, 1% goes to this part. I know that through checks, if it still works, the checks, yes, 100% of the money in a check goes to ADRA. It takes a little bit more time, but yes, in this case, the cost might be lower. But as I said, I'm not a specialist in finance. I just say my past experience in other countries, how it works.
Yes. All right.
Well, and I will say this, because when I worked as the ACS director, I did know that there was a agreement that what was given to ADRA through ACS here in the United States, what would get to ADRA. So I do know the ACS will get the 100% of the funds that come through go to ADRA, especially if it's earmarked for ADRA. So you are safe in putting that through ACS or through your local church or whatever, and it will get to ADRA.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, again, I thank you so much for sharing what's happening in this disaster relief area and the things that you're doing, the system that's in place. We have a very organized system. We're all one, right? ADRA is a part of the church, and so we just appreciate the ministry you're doing, and you gave us ways, how we can support. You said we can give financially, and then you also gave the example of what the classroom has done as well, praying and postcard and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of ways that we can get involved so that there can be some relief there. And praying for peace, that's the main thing, right? Yeah. Praying for peace, that this would just stop so that people can be situated in their place and live, life to the fullest. And so thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on our program today. Pastor Wade,
thank you for having me.
I was going to say, Pastor Wade, you are a preacher of righteousness, man. You started out today, you were preaching, and then you came back on the Pastors Roundtable, man. We see your dedication to this ministry, so we just praise God for you. But I want to ask you a question, Pastor Wade. Next week, what's going on next week?
What's on the table next week?
Well, what's on the table next week? Well, listen, we're going to take our break. We have come to the end of our season number 4. We are just so excited what God is doing. And we wanted to end on something that was very relevant. And so, Mario, thank you so much for bringing the work that ADRA is doing, the ministry of mercy that is happening there overseas. And so for the next 2 weeks, we're going to take a little break. But in April, we will begin with season number 5 of the Pastors Roundtable. Just look for more information on our social media feeds and our website as we share, as we zone in on the exact date that we'll begin. But we thank you, those are viewers, for being a part of making the success of Pastors Roundtable season 4. And we look forward to what God is going to do in season number 5. Again, thank you, Mario. Thank you, viewers, for joining us in partnering in helping to make ministry relevant,
resourced,
and real. God bless.
Take care, everybody.
Goodbye.